that. All right, so I'm Romelia. Welcome to our space. For those of you who are new to Casa Walters Essentials, this is our Wellness Wednesday that we do every week, right about this hour. And and we have access in our Facebook group as well as on Zoom. And we just cover different topics that really support an active, healthy, natural lifestyle, and really focusing on the wellness pyramid, as well as some, wellness is physical, it's emotional, it's mental, it's spiritual. So we really try to encompass all of that and just give you some resources, some information, some research to help you live a more active, vital, a life full of vitality. So today's guest speaker is probably the best in the business, and I say that as a biased mom. But no, I'm really excited to introduce to you Meagan Olgin. She is an Ayurvedic Health Counselor, and she has graciously agreed to join us today in our space to share with us about Ayurvedic medicine, Ayurvedic healing. And I'm probably using the wrong words, but this is because this really is this is something very new for me, and I'm learning along with Meagan as much as I can so that I have a greater understanding of what this is all about and how we can incorporate some of this healing art into our home. I'm going to stop there before I say things that are incorrect, but I just want to welcome Sarah into our space. Thank you for joining us live in Zoom. And for those of you in our Facebook group, thank you for joining us live. I am going to stop my words from coming out, and Meagan, please take it away.
Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm so very honored to be here with you. Ayurveda has just completely transformed my life. And so today I would just like to share a little bit with you about what Ayurveda is, how it has come into my life and practice, and how it can support you in your life and your practice. So before we begin, I would just like to offer a space for each of us to just ground into the body, to ground into this time and space that we're sharing together. So I invite you to lift your spine, come into your seat, close your eyes, and take a nice deep breath in through the nostrils, allowing the belly to fill and the air to travel down into the base of the body. And then exhaling either through the nose or through the mouth in whatever way, shape, or form feels best. And then let's do that a couple more times. Deep breath in and deep breath out. And last one, nice deep breath in and a deep breath out. So as it was already said, yes, my name is Meagan. Hi, I am currently a student of the Ayurvedic Institute studying under Dr. Vasant Lad. Dr. Vasant Lad, at least in my personal opinion, is like the Dumbledore of Ayurveda. He is so known in this practice of not just a healing science, but in a spiritual realm as well. He is the first person to bring Ayurveda to the West. So for those of you who don't know, Ayurveda is the life science of India. It is a holistic practice, meaning that it involves mind, body, and spirit. Ayurveda is also passed down traditionally through sutra, and sutras are threads of knowledge, of information that have come to us as a gift from the divine, from the consciousness. Something that I really love about this practice is that it does invite the person, the practitioner, to involve their own power in the healing form. And so what Dr. Lad has done is he has taken this knowledge that has been around for 5,000 plus years, and he's transmuted it into an integrative space with Western medicine. So the first year of my study was really about changing my lens of operation, my lens of perception, into understanding a really foundational piece of Ayurveda, which is that the elements of the macrocosm, being air, water, earth, fire, and ether, those elements come into the microcosm of the body. And these elements show up in a very distinct way within each of us. We all have different levels of these elements present at all times. And so these elements are then broken up into what we call doshas. And doshas are the parts of us that are going to become out of balance. So we have what we call a prakriti, which is the way that we have shown up into this existence in this body with a certain amount of each element. Then what happens is over time, through lifestyle, through diet, through karmic patterns, through just, daily life things, that prakriti becomes imbalanced. And at that point, we call it a vikriti. And so what Ayurveda is doing is wanting to put us back into our natural state of balance by looking at these doshas, the three constitutions, which in turn are encapsulating the elements of the macro into the self, which is the micro. So breaking that down a little bit, I know that's probably very large because Ayurveda is very large and all-encompassing. But the three doshas are going to be Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Maybe these words you've heard before, as they are what is, used to represent a person's individual balance. So the Vata dosha is going to be represented of the ether and the air elements. Vata is all about mobility. It's about communication. It's what moves the pranic channels. It's what moves our body. And it's usually the first dosha to go out of balance. Vata likes to be balanced through things that are heavy, through things that are oily, through things that are unctuous, through the earth element itself, and through heat. The next dosha is Pitta dosha. This is going to be your fire and your water elements. Pitta is all about transmutation. It's about transfiguration. It's about cognition. And it's about that fire, that flame, that intensity and desire for life. Okay. And so Pitta is balanced through things that are cold, things that are stable, and things that are just more of like a cooling and calming kind of state. The last dosha is Kapha dosha. This is going to be your water and your earth element. So this is going to be the heaviest of the doshas. Kapha is slimy. Kapha is cold. Kapha is heavy. Kapha is unctuous. And so to balance Kapha, we need qualities that are dry, that are light, that are mobile. So that way, when we balance, we always use opposites. And so that was the first year of study in a very small nutshell, is understanding that our world of existence actually lives within us, and recognizing that the body, at least in Ayurvedic understanding, the body does in fact inhabit the mind. The mind is not in the body is in the mind. And therefore, whatever we think and however we move into a healing practice with ourselves, with whatever that encompasses, understanding that we have full power and we have full recognition of self through that healing, because we are the ones that do the healing. We offer guidance as practitioners and health counselors, but it's really the individual that does the healing. In my second year of study, which is what I'm finishing up right now, we get a little bit more into the energetics of things. We get into herbal medicine. We get into a little bit more of the clinical practice of things, because Ayurveda is not only going to balance the physical, but it does help to balance the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And so when we have consultations, it's all about focusing on what your daily life looks like from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. What are you eating? What are you drinking? How are you moving throughout your day? What are the times of these meals? How are you digesting? What your stress level is? What is your relationship with sleep? What is your relationship with just your natural working order of life? And from all of these clues, we can then understand, okay, what doshas are out of balance. And then we can give a better picture of how we're going to move into a more balanced state. And so when somebody comes to us for a consultation, we work with them through that, and then we offer a chikitsa. And chikitsa is just it's like a protocol for the self-healing. So now that you kind of understand a little bit about what Ayurveda is, which is the macrocosm coming into the microcosm, represented by 5 elements, which then get broken down into 3 doshas, which are present when you come into this existence of a body and are in perfect balance. And then through lifestyle, diet, environment, relationship, all of these things become unbalanced. We use the opposite quality of those elements to then bring us back into as close of a space of balance as we can. I'm going to give you a few little bit of life hacks that Ayurveda has offered me, and that has really changed the way that I move through my daily life and existence. Because as my teacher likes to say, Dr. Lad, without your routine, you cannot find stability. You cannot become self-aware. And the Vedas tell us, at least in like our personal belief, that we are here to self-realize. We are here to become fully aware. So I like to start my morning by getting up and immediately going to brush my teeth. First things first. And then I scrape my tongue. So our tongue is actually a map of our entire GI system. And it can also tell us a lot about how we are digesting nutrition. We can tell a lot about like where heaviness, where pain, where tension is being held along the spine or in certain organs of the body. So by scraping the tongue in the morning, I allow my body to start to awaken my Agni. Now, Agni is a very big part of Ayurveda. Agni is your digestive power, but it's not just the digestion of like what foods and drinks you intake, but it's the digestion of all your sensory perceptions. So this was like a really big turning point for me when I understood that everything I see, everything I hear, everything I smell, everything I touch actually has to come in and then be digested through my Agni. And that digestion allows things to then be absorbed and assimilated. And so keeping our Agni kindled and keeping our Agni in good working order is a really big goal when it comes to balancing those elements of our body. So I brush my teeth, I scrape my tongue, and then I have a glass of either hot water or at least warm water. So Ayurveda is a really big support of sipping on warm, hot, or even like room temperature water as a way to keep the system from becoming shocked by and constricting and dampening the Agni when cold comes in. So I'll drink my hot water. Sometimes I'll add a little bit of squeeze of lime. I'll grate some ginger in there. I'll add a little bit of honey. I never add honey when it's boiled because it will change the consistency of that honey. But I just get myself into a nice morning like drink and start to welcome my Agni into the day. After I drink my water, it's when I usually sit down and I do my practice of breath work and of meditation. So Ayurveda is not just a medical science, like I stated before, but it's also a spiritual practice. Oftentimes, the spirituality is taken out, and that's all right because everybody's allowed to practice in their ways. But the way that I am learning and the way that my lineage is teaching me is that becoming one with the spirit consciousness and becoming one with the idea and the knowledge that divinity lies within this vessel, and me self-realizing means that I'm connecting to that divinity in this vessel, is going to assist in my healing of whatever it is, physical, mental, emotional. So then I do some breath work, and I sit and I just come into my space. Now, moving throughout our day, Ayurveda has a lot of different ways to keep yourself in balance, but something that I like to remember is that our Agni, our digestive fire, is at its peak between the hours of 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. And so one of the big things that transformed my life was understanding that if I have high Agni during that time, that's when I want to eat my biggest meal, because our Agni is going to be at its peak during that time. We're going to be able to digest, absorb, assimilate to the best of our ability if we have our biggest meal through that day. Now I know in like our daily lives, that's a little bit difficult because we're busy, we're running around, we have lives, we have kids, we have jobs, there's so many factors. But if we can anchor down this one meal, this can become really transformative for us. And at that point, we can recognize that it takes a full 6 hours to digest a meal completely. So Ayurveda also likes to talk to us about food stacking, meaning giving your body enough time to work through what you've given it before you put something else in there. So sometimes, this works out for me. I'm not going to say that I live a perfect Ayurvedic life every single day. I can tell you I do brush my teeth, scrape my tongue, drink my warm water in the morning, but also it's just like something that I try to be aware of. So I have my meal my biggest meal during the day. And then I let myself digest, right? And as I'm moving through my day, I'm constantly just being with myself about how I'm feeling in that post-digestive state. Because Ayurveda says we are what we digest. So if I'm having a little bit of gas or bloating, or if I'm feeling a little bit tired, it kind of shows us that the Agni is impaired a little bit. And in which case we can go in and we can support in diet, in breath work, in herbal medicines, or whatever we need to. So I go throughout my day, sipping my warm water, trying to keep myself in a good headspace, remembering that I can always come back to my breath if things are getting a little bit wild and crazy out there. And then I have my bedtime routine. And that also includes brushing my teeth, scraping my tongue, and putting myself down and giving myself time to close off the sensory perceptions. So there are a lot of other things throughout what Ayurveda calls dinacharya, which is like your daily routine. But we like to pinpoint and pick certain things out that are going to support the individual, depending on how they are out of balance. That being said, things to also keep in mind when it comes to living in the Ayurvedic realm of existence is that we like to eat foods that are well spiced, well cooked, warm, and unctuous. So ghee is a really big thing for us in Ayurveda, or any just like oily quality. In Sanskrit, the word for oil is sneha, but another translation of sneha is actually love. So the more oil, the more unctuousness quality that comes into us, whether it's us applying oil to the body as like a self-massage, whether it's oil coming in through the foods, that's going to provide more love into our existence. And so we're also always trying to combat balance or imbalance through balancing that plane of existence that resides within all of us, because in that way, we can totally manifest the life that we want through understanding that healing power lies within us. There's so much to Ayurveda. It is absolutely beautiful. It's transformed my life, not just in the way that I perceive the world, but also in the way that I show up in my relationships. It's really changed the way that I show up in loving myself and in getting to know myself. And so I just invite you to take a look at some of the links that will be posted a little bit later. Two of which are going to be books by my teacher, Dr. Lad. One is going to be Ayurveda for Self-Healing. It'll just give you a whole roundabout, big picture, but also really like intense scope of what Ayurveda is and how you can bring that into your life. There's going to be a link for a book called Home Remedies, which just pretty much gives not only diet and lifestyle and herbal remedies for day-to-day things, but also just provides a little bit more on how you can assist yourself and assist others around you for simple things like skin rashes or dry eyes, or bigger things like menstrual cramps or diabetes. Like there are so many things that are in that Home Remedies book. I'm also going to leave a link for the Ayurprana YouTube channel. Ayurprana is an affiliated organization with the Ayurvedic Institute. There's just beautiful videos there from my teacher, Dr. Lad, and how you can work the scope of Ayurveda and the bigger picture, the macro and the micro coming together, and just different ways of bringing meditation and mindfulness into your life are there for just, free viewing. And I'm also going to leave a link for the Ayurvedic Institute itself, because there are also free videos to watch on there, depending on what you're interested in, whether it's, learning a little bit more about the pulse, because we do use pulse diagnosis when we are meeting clients face-to-face, whether it's about Marma, which is Ayurvedic energy acupressure work, like we are made up of pranic channels. And so we move into those pranic channels by touching certain points of the body. There's so many videos and so many things that you can learn. Like Ayurveda is a lifetimes of study. And so I just wanted to come here and provide a little bit of information for you in what Ayurveda is, just some nice little tidbits that you can like bring into your life, which is the warm, well-cooked, unctuous food, the drinking warm water before you put anything else into your body, really kind of trying to focus on having your biggest meal between the hours of 12 and 2, and understanding that your Agni, your digestive fire, isn't just about what you eat and what you drink, but it's about everything that comes into your sensory perception, and being really knowledgeable and understanding of like what that sensory perception does when it does come into you, and being able to recognize like when things are serving you and when things aren't. It's such a beautiful way of getting to know yourself and getting to know the world around you, that I offer you to look into these free things, to do a little bit more research, because Ayurveda is vast. And there are so many people who are moving into this space of healing because it's really self-empowering. And when we learn and we recognize and we get to tap into knowledge that's already here within us, and we bring that to the surface in our daily existence, literally anything is possible. Anything is possible. Miracles happen, but they start with the recognition that you are the one that can change everything about your life. In every single breath that you take, and every single time that your eyes blink, and every single like touch of your fingertips, like it is all available. So with that, I would like to lead us through a small meditation, just so that we can really come back in and focus. And then I'm not too sure who's on, but if there are questions or spaces for questions, you're more than welcome to either type those in, share those with me, or also just reach out to me personally. I am available for consultations via Zoom, or if you are in Asheville, I am more than welcome to meet you face to face. I have just a couple more weeks of this program, and I am just so enamored with the amount of knowledge that can be gained in a short period of time, but also the amount of resource that's out there for each of us on an individual level. So just keep that in mind when you're moving through your day, is that it's all available. You're totally in power of what happens and the way that you show up, and that healing really starts from within. So let's take a moment. Maybe shrug the shoulders. We're going to move into a meditation called Empty Bowl. So you can just close your eyes. Allowing the breath to come in through the nose, and relaxing the rest of the body. On your next inhale, notice the coolness of the breath as it enters into the nostrils, and then guide it down into the space behind the belly button, where there's a natural stop, a natural pause of breath. And as you exhale, follow the breath up and out, feeling the warmth of the breath on the nostrils, and then noticing a place about 8 to 12 finger lengths in front of your nose, and letting the breath stop there. And allowing these two stops, the one outside of the nose and the one behind the belly button, to be the container in which you breathe into and breathe out of. Letting the sensation of temperature change, the sensation of fullness come in with your inhales. And noticing how you can control the space of how the breath moves, of how it feels. And recognizing that as you sit here, moving between the stops, You can allow the gaps between breaths to get longer. And you can envision the space between the two stops, emptying out of any thoughts, feelings, emotions, and even sensations that might be occurring. Really moving yourself into the reality of being an empty vessel, an empty bowl, open and waiting for the next breath to come in, and open to releasing the breath as it moves out. And if the mind starts to wander away from the breath or those two stops, just gently guide it back. Inhaling to the place behind the belly button and exhaling to the space just outside of the tip of the nose. Inhaling coolness and exhaling warmth. Inhaling coolness and exhaling warmth. Inhaling, attention goes to the space behind the belly button. Then exhaling, attention goes to the space outside of the nose. You are empty. You are open. And you are free. And then you can slowly let go of that image of the empty bowl. You can let yourself return to a natural breath pattern. And I invite you to take your hands in front of you and gently begin to rub them together, creating a little bit of heat, inviting the energy to come into the palms and into the fingers. And when you're ready, you can gently place the palms over the closed eyes, fingers wrap up over the head, bringing all of that energy into your vessel. And then I invite you just to sweep those hands down the head, down the front of the torso, down the legs, down the shoulders, through the arms, into the hands. And then take your hands and move them to your low back, just under where the ribs end, and give yourself a little bit of tap, waking up the kidneys. And this is something that you can do just in general to bring the energy back into the body. And then you can open the eyes. If anybody has questions, or Mom, if you want to say anything, I have so much more information to give, but it can be quite overwhelming. So I figured that we could keep it short and simple, unless someone has specifics, and then maybe I can have an answer.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that's the most quiet my brain has been all day. And I need to remind myself to do that. You tell me this all the time. Um, I do have some questions, or maybe just a
Yes.
couple of. So you mentioned and hopefully I'm pronouncing this correctly. Ugni, Ugni,
Oh, Agni?
Ugni. Okay, thank
Agni.
you. Okay, so what is there, like, specific foods that should be eaten during this time? You mentioned things like something with a lot of spice, something that's warm and something that's oily. Is there like a certain proportion? Is there a certain types of things, or is it just focusing on something spicy and warm? Or I mean, give me a little bit more on that.
So, as we like to say in Ayurveda, it depends. Um, people's
Very
agnis are
simple, maybe.
people's agnis are completely different. So there's three ways that we like to categorize agni. One is vishama, meaning it's irregular. So that can be shown up as sometimes you're hungry, sometimes you're not, sometimes you have comfortable digestion, sometimes you don't. Then we have tikshna agni. That's going to be the sharp pain, or not sharp pain, sorry, sharp hunger. So it's like when you're hungry, these are the people, and you have tikshna agni, these are the people who get hangry, or like maybe a little bit of like hypoglycemic. And that's also like quick digestion too. Like tikshna agni could be have a full meal and then maybe an hour later be like, oh my gosh, like I'm so hungry again. And then we have manda agni, which is slow. So don't really have an appetite, eat, and then it just takes like forever for you to work through that. Okay. So when we have vishama and manda agni, so when we have irregular and slow agni, that's when you want to focus on the warm, when you want to focus on the well spiced. And it doesn't really mean like a certain level of spice. I'm not talking about like hot spicy, but just like spices that help to move digestion, which is going to be like ginger,
I
black
was
pepper, cardamom, fennel, like these types of spices, and cumin. These types of spices will help to kindle the agni. You can also do hing or ajwain. You know, these types of things could just be added. And that's going to help to maneuver the agni and get it boosted. So it is about like the quantity of food as well, because we don't want to eat so much that we dampen that agni. Ayurveda likes to say to keep a little bit of space when you're eating. So don't eat all the way to when you're full. This is very hard for me. But when it comes down to what it means by well spiced, it's like you want the spices that get things moving. So again, like ginger, black pepper, cumin, coriander, fennel, hing, ajwain, even turmeric. You know, these types of things we can add to our food, and that's going to help the digestive process.
okay.
When you have tikshna agni, when things are really when things are moving quickly, you do still want things that are warm. You still want things that are grounded. You don't necessarily need like the oily quality, but like a little bit of ghee, just so that it can like unctuate the food, because we don't ever want to eat anything that's too dry or too rough or too cold. So those are qualities of foods that we want to kind of stay away from, because those are hard on the body to digest just in general. So dry, rough, cold. We want warm, well cooked, well spiced, and a little bit of lubrication in there. Now, when you have tikshna agni, you don't have to put so much ginger or so much black pepper, because at that point your agni is already pretty kindled and you're just moving through things in general. So I mean, you can spice food, but you don't have to go over the top. And tikshna agni, because it's usually pretty hot, also likes things like lime and cilantro. Those are going to be cooling on that hot quality, that sharp quality of the agni.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. My other question that I had was, so you mentioned this, you mentioned warm water throughout the day. And is that can it be jet tea? Can we add oils to that? Or is it best to keep it clean water?
So when it comes to water, something that really blew me away when I started studying Ayurveda is the understanding that water also has to be digested. So when we think about the temperature of our body, like the normal average temperature, right, like 98 degrees, things that are as close to that temperature are going to be easier for our body to digest. So you can totally have tea because tea is nice, but a lot of herbal teas are also going to be diuretics. So, they're going to help with the urination process, which just means that you need to remember to like combat tea with water in general. As for oils, I love that practice in general of adding oils to water. Again, though, just as long as it's in the form that it's easy to digest. And I think the best way to have it easy to digest is going to be the temperature. So just remembering that it doesn't have to be so boiling that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't even sip this. But if it's as close to your body temperature as you can get it, your body is going to recognize that quality, and it's going to be that much easier for you to absorb and assimilate and digest that liquid. And that goes for all the things too. Like it's really transformed my life, in the way that like I just move through drinks. So I'm that person now. When I get to the restaurant, I'm like, no, I have my water, or I'll ask for hot water, because that's going to keep my Agni going.
Okay. Go ahead, Sarah. You have a question.
Hi, Megan. Hi, Romelia. I loved everything from today's session. It was really awesome to hear some of the old things I remember and be reminded about, and then learn some new things too. I am curious on I guess, two things. So I know our personal constituent changes, or constitution, changes. Do you change your practices like based on season, or based on like fluctuating things external from us?
Yeah, absolutely. So Kala, which is time, and Ruta, which is season, are super important when it comes to Ayurveda. So depending on like how those doshas are showing up in your constitution, you definitely want to change what you're doing to balance those out. So for example, when we're moving into summer, and those of us who have a lot of that fire and water quality within us, perhaps can like start to think about adding more cooling things into our diet, can think about maybe taking ourselves out of the sun throughout the hotter day, can think about like what it means to be like in a cool space, not just mentally, but like physically. Another example is like in the wintertime, our Agni is actually at its peak, strangely enough. So that's why we want those like heavy, like hearty kinds of foods, and we can digest that. So like a soup that you would make in the winter time, or like the breads and like the deep like seasonal fare of that, doesn't maybe feel so welcoming in the summer, because the Agni's like, I'm already pretty good, I don't need to digest that, and I don't want that either. So it's really nice to like follow the seasons of the world, the macrocosm, and move with that. But also, yeah, as your constitution is changing, like as your Vikriti is changing, this is why Ayurveda is an individual science. We don't just group everybody into a thing and it's like, this is going to work for everybody. It's because we can actually look at what's happening for you personally in that elemental space, and then decide exactly what's going to reach the root cause of your imbalance based on how you're showing up on a daily basis.
Cool. That is very cool to understand that. And a little, I guess, counterintuitive almost, that like the Agni would be accelerated, or it makes sense that you're countering like the outside coldness, so the heat within the body is maybe on overtime versus in the heat of the
because
summer.
it's already trying to keep you warm, it's already trying to like stay high during that season for you.
That makes so much sense. So the more I learn about Ayurveda, the more I'm like, oh, why doesn't everyone get this and do this? Because it just makes so much sense. But yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you both so much. It was so cool to see your name pop up on Romelia's text for the week. So I was like, I'm driving back from Santa Fe, but I'm gonna make it happen.
I'm so happy to have you. Yeah. And honestly, any questions, like any consultations, any desires out there, people's, like, I'm here. I'm so available now.
That was my question for you. What can one expect at a consultation? What are we looking at?
So just like any medical practice, we do get your health history. But what we like to see, not just like in family health history and like what prescriptions you might be on right now, what kinds of things are flowing for you, but the way that we always start a consultation is like, okay, tell me what your top concerns are. And these can be all the concerns from mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, like what's happening for you individually. And then we go through the day. So we do really want to know what time you wake up. What do you do when you first get out of bed? What's the first thing you put in your body? What are you eating? What time are you eating? How are you feeling after you eat? How many times are you urinating throughout the day? Are you having a daily bowel movement? A daily bowel movement is an essential part of living Ayurvedically. Like we want everyone to have a daily bowel movement, and not just a daily bowel movement, but like a satisfying daily bowel movement. So we talk about poop a lot, and it's great. How is that showing up for you? Okay, what is your stress level like? What do you do for work? How are you just moving throughout your day? Because the bigger picture of how you give, or what you give us, we can then start to look at, oh, okay, this quality, this type of thing that's happening in this person's day is very much in accordance to this dosha. This dosha are these qualities. Now we're going to look at how we can balance that with opposite. So for example, if you're having trouble sleeping at night, my question would be, is it because you're having trouble falling asleep, or because you're having trouble staying asleep? Because those are two different doshas. And then depending on the answer you give me, I can then say, okay, this is what we're going to potentially do about it. This is what Ayurveda says you can do about it. So we go through your day. And then if you were in person, we could potentially do some what we call darshan, like we're going to look at you, the way that you're showing up. We do tongue diagnosis and face diagnosis, and then we read pulse. And the pulse is going to tell us a lot about how you're showing up. If you're not in person, we can take the pulse out, but I can still look at you and see like, okay, this is what I'm seeing, like on the map of your tongue, on the map of your face. You've given us a whole picture of what your day looks like. And now we're going to look at the qualities of like how that day is representing. And then from that, I'm going to say, hey, this is what Ayurveda says about this, this, and this when it comes to your concerns, because your concerns can change day to day. So you can fill out a health history form, say like, hey, I wanted to work on this, but then show up into the consultation and say, actually, that has nothing to do with it. Or maybe you don't even know what the real like concern is, because you need somebody else in a third party space to like look at it and say, hey, but I'm hearing a lot of this from you. Is this actually something that feels more important? You know? And at that point, it's like, oh yeah, maybe, because what Ayurveda is slow medicine. So that means that we go to the root of the issue. We do work in symptom. We do work to create balance and ease, because everybody just wants to feel good, and we want our clients to leave our consultations feeling good and feeling empowered. But the meat of it, the essence and the purity of Ayurveda is that it's an individualistic scope. Therefore, we can get to exactly what's going on with you, and we can get to the root. And it's not going to be a quick fix, because as my teacher, Dr. Ladd, says, anything that is going to last a while is going to take a while. So Ayurveda is great for preventative medicine. Ayurveda is great to help with acute things as well as chronic things. Ayurveda is just a great way of moving through that. So yeah, the consultations vary on person to person. And then if need be, we can always suggest a panchakarma, which is an Ayurvedic detox program, which pretty much brings all of those doshas that are out of balance, puts them into the central space of the GI tract, and then are flushed out. And you just become this like empty vessel who's been unctuating daily, who is doing daily like purgation, who is getting daily massage, who's getting oil in every crevice that you could possibly think of, who's getting different kinds of therapy treatments. And that really is like a whole reset of the body. So it just depends, but usually the consultation is based on what are your concerns? How are you showing up today? What does your daily life picture look like? And then how are the doshas showing up, in what qualities they're showing up? And then we're going to get into the balance.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And you're going to provide to us how someone can access that consult. Yes?
Yes, I will leave my information. And again, I'm going to link a bunch of resources, whether it's just reading resources or video resources. And if you're just curious at all, like just, I just invite you to look into it, because the Vedic sciences are so extensive. Ayurveda is just the medical science, but there's so much behind it that involves the bigger scope of this universe and this like planet and galaxy that we're on. And it really is an entire relationship with the world around you.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking time. I know that you're busy, but we really do appreciate you sharing this information. I'm so excited to see how this all just plays out, you know, I'm just really excited for you. I think this, and excited for anybody that gets to encounter you and work with you. Honestly,
you.
And it's just so lovely to have this resource, not just for our essential oil doTERRA community, but for our community in general. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate you taking the time. And Sarah, thank you for joining us today. It's so lovely to see your face.
It's so lovely to see you both. And thank you so much for this idea. Great idea, Romelia. And thank you, Meagan, for jumping
It's my
on Zoom
pleasure.
so far.
I love Ayurveda, everybody. I love Ayurveda, and I want everyone to love Ayurveda.
Your passion for it is definitely obvious, and it's very apparent in the way that you give it. So just really grateful for it. Thank you very much for sharing. All right, this will get uploaded soon. Send those links over to me and I'll put them underneath the video. And we can, if you have any questions that arise once you go back and watch this, or you know, pondered some of the information, just process some of this information, always, she's available. Just put your questions, reach out. She's available to answer, and she's available for consult. So yeah, reach out to them if you have something that you're working on, or just even want more information. All right, so thank you, ladies, for this evening. You guys have a great evening, and we'll see you soon.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Hari Om.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you all.